right, piss and vinegar today, 157, chest and triceps. So I think I'm about a month into my cut, and everything's going well. I'm maintaining plenty of movements that ordinarily lose a lot of strength, like incline dumbbell presses or barbell presses and shit like that. I'm maintaining, and I'm more than maintaining. I say I'm very slowly, progressively overloading, which is not normal for me. And then other areas I'm still progressing perfectly fine. And I really attribute this to high intensity training, obviously. I mean, when I used to train volume, I would lose a hell of a lot of strength. There was so many problems with volume when I was trying to weight cut. First was just the weight strength or strength loss. I would just lose a shit ton of strength because I just wasn't recovered enough. Because when you're in a calorie deficit, you can't train as much, as frequently, with as much volume, etc., etc. So with high intensity, I've maintained or gained far more strength just based off the fact that my recovery is that much better. And it's funny because the last weight cut I did, right? I went from 100 kilos to 75 kilos, and at 95 kilos, so like 5 kilos into the cut, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try out high intensity training. And I switched to high intensity training, and I started gaining strength and muscle in a huge weight cut. I mean, I went 20 kilos beyond that, and I still gained strength and muscle. So, I mean, not only does high intensity have a way better, recovery aspect that allows you to maintain strength, it will very likely allow you to gain strength if you've just been doing nonsense volume work. On top of that, I'm not anywhere as hungry as when I was doing volume, because if you are doing, long volume workouts every single day with a bunch of frequency and shit, you're going to need more calories to sustain that effort. And if they're not there, then your body's going to produce more ghrelin and say, hey, where's the fucking calories? Oh, well, you're eating 2,000 calories? Too bad. We want 4,000. And that's part of why you lose strength and muscle anyway, is that the fact is you need 4,000. Your body's telling you that you need 4,000. And somehow, or maybe not somehow, because a lot of times this is just how my weight cuts fail, but somehow a lot of you guys just stay off those hunger pains, and then you lose strength because you're not eating enough calories relative to your effort. So right now, I'm stimulating my muscles just enough to make adaptations to maintain or gain without being fucking starved because my recovery is perfectly fine. So that's really the biggest thing with high intensity, was just realizing how much easier it is for weight cuts for me. If you're listening right now and you're skeptical about high intensity, I'd say two things. First is, if you're not weight cutting, you're bulking, and you don't want to waste the bulk in quotations because you're afraid that high intensity won't work and you'll waste this bulk of yours. Well, I'd say fair. If you're brainwashed by volume, by all means. But what you should try then is just choose one muscle, and maybe a muscle that you got like a decent hand genetically, and you're not too worried about it. If it maintains because high intensity doesn't work or whatever, then so be it. All good. And then you'll know that doesn't work, and you can go back to volume. So maybe you have good chest genetics or delt genetics, or maybe you're desperate and you just haven't had gains in fucking months, which you should have by now, because at the end of the day, if you're in a calorie surplus and everything is created equal, and you're recovering well and you're sleeping well and eating well and all this shit, you should be making gains. But if it's been, say, 2-3 months you've made no gains, then it's time to change something. And in this case, just choose anything. It doesn't have to be a genetically gifted thing. You just want to try. You want to see if you can get some fucking gains, right? So try high intensity training for that one muscle for, say, 3 to 6 months, and watch the gains flow. Now, if you're cutting, though, you have nothing to lose because you're losing strength and muscle anyway on your volume fucking journey. Try high intensity training, especially if you're more advanced. I mean, if you're a novice, then by all means, you can weight cut and still gain a bunch of strength and muscle. And if you're obese, also the same. If you're 40% body fat, you've got so many fat stores and energy reserves, and it's all good. But if you're intermediate or advanced or just generally losing strength in general from your weight cut, try high intensity training. I guarantee you're going to maintain a hell of a lot more strength and muscle, if not gain a bunch, because you're going to actually have enough stimulus to adapt from, whereas in volume you don't. So that's what I would say. And thus far, I haven't been hungry. I've been gaining strength, or maintaining at the very least, and everything's going really well due to high intensity training. I mean, my diet is also, pretty on point. I'm making sure that my calories aren't too low, albeit I am in a pretty aggressive cut. In the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've lost, I think, 5 kilos, which is pretty intense, kilo a week. Normally, I would have lost so much fucking strength by now, especially on the presses. Now, obviously in a weight cut, you're always going to, lose something, whether it be less, you don't progress as fast or you get weaker or whatever it is, something will happen for sure. You're not going to keep progressing. Part of that will be a rebound effect when you go back into a bulk. Part of that is just simply when you're bulking. I mean, everyone always cites leverages as the big thing. Like, when you're bulking, you have more padding around the elbows, so your bench press is gonna be that much better. And if you're barbell pressing and you're fatter, then of course the barbell range of motion is gonna be less, and thus it's gonna be easier. And that's true. All of that's true. But a lesser thought of one, or said one, I haven't seen anyone really talk about is blood pressure. When you're bulking, your blood pressure goes up. You're consuming more food, more sodium, more glycogen, and thus you are holding more water, and your estrogen will go up because you have more fat stores, and thus your blood pressure will increase, which makes you stronger. I mean, this is demonstrable just in steroid users. When steroid users take anabolics, their estrogen gets way higher because they're aromatizing, and steroids in general just increase blood pressure. It takes strain on the heart. And thus, they have these huge strength increases when, these roiders jump on the gear. But the same thing happens on maybe a slightly less scale, but a scale nonetheless when you're bulking. Your blood pressure is going to increase. I mean, I knew this for a fact. When I started bulking, I was more out of breath, I was more sweaty, it was, my face was going more red when I was training. Now that I'm getting leaner and I'm, healthier in essence because I'm less fat and my testosterone's probably higher and my estrogen's probably lower because I'm cutting weight, until you get too lean, and then everything flips around again. But basically, you are going to get stronger artificially from that blood pressure. So part of that is that. But if you're losing a shit ton of strength through your weight cut, you're doing something wrong. And a very easy way to mend that is simply just train with high intensity, and your recovery will be there, and you won't be so fucking hungry. Because if you're doing 2-hour-long workouts that require 4,000 calories, but you're only eating 2, you're going to be starving all the time, and you're going to lose a lot of strength because you're doing way too much relative to your calorie level. You hear this shit all the time. It's fucking insane. Train harder when you're weight cutting, bro. It's the best way to maintain muscle. You're fucking dumb as fuck if you think that. I can't stress that enough. You have to be retarded to think that training harder when you weight cut is the way to go. That's so fucking stupid. I mean, I get the logical fallacy of it is train harder because you need to maintain muscle, and if you train harder you'll get more muscle or whatever, but it doesn't make any real logical sense, and it's just demonstrably so. Your central nervous system is just not going to recover as much. Everything's not going to recover as much when you're cutting weight, so you're just trying to make enough stimulus to maintain or slightly gain, or maybe slightly gain some muscle, or in my case, in a lot of cases, gain a fuck ton of muscle for a weight cut, and that's it. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today is high intensity is better for weight cutting. Albeit if it's everything created equal, volume and high intensity are totally equal, and there's no difference. At the end of the day, one is much easier to adhere to, one is much easier and simple, and one is far better for weight cutting because there's far less that can go wrong. You can definitely weight cut properly with a volume if you do everything right, but you have to calculate a hell of a lot more, you have to auto-regulate a hell of a lot more, and it's harder to adhere to because your workout's going to be longer, and when you're in a glycogen depleted state and your brain's not functioning as well because you're cutting weight, that's fucking hard. Whereas a 15-20 minute high intensity workout's that much easier to get through when you're fucking starving, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Now, and in saying that, look at my tricep extension here, it's still progressively overloading, no problem. There's plenty of movement still progressing for me. The chest press, obviously, it's very difficult to maintain pressing strength on a weight cut. It just is. Just so many leverage differences. The blood pressure is huge on those movements. And also, those are just more advanced movements for me. I'm stronger at my chest press relative to, say, my squat. So my squat could probably progressively overload a hell of a lot more just based off the fact that my squat's intermediate and my incline dumbbell press is probably considerably advanced at this point. So that's another part, obviously, but even more a testament to high-intensity training is the fact that my incline dumbbell press is advanced and yet isn't getting that much weaker throughout my weight cut. Normally, when you weight cut, if you're advanced, you lose a hell of a lot of strength because it's so much harder to hold on to all these adaptations you've made that the body doesn't simply evolutionarily want to hold on to. So yeah, rant over. I don't want to keep going on about that, but basically, if you're cutting weight, try high intensity, you will fucking thank me later, basically. What else? I tried a new variation today that if you saw back before I was doing that, I did pec flies with the cables, and that shit felt fucking sick. I'm going to start doing that instead of dumbbell flies from now on. I'm slowly, if you've been watching my channel over the last few months, just basically changing everything to cables or anything I can make it, cable or machine, as possible. At the end of the day, if I had the money and resources, you would very seldom see me using a barbell or a dumbbell. I would mostly use machines if I had a machine that I liked for every muscle group. Biceps, triceps, you name it. If I had the money and the machine and the space for the machine, I would not be using dumbbells for just about anything. There's maybe like 2 or 3 things where I'd still do dumbbells. Like the decline curl, I like the dumbbell just because getting that huge stretch at the bottom is very important. For shrugs, maybe just because of the stretch. Like anything that requires a huge stretch, but even then, plenty of machines allow for an incredible stretch overload. So really, yeah, you wouldn't see me using barbells or dumbbells. If I wasn't a personal trainer, I wouldn't even have a fucking squat rack. I would swap out my squat rack for a Smith machine, because Smith machines are fucking way better for hypertrophy. And I don't want to hear the strength thing, because it's like, dude, if you look at a strongman, you get Brian Shaw, put him on a chest press machine against a powerlifter who specializes in bench press technically, who has a better bench press than Brian Shaw, but you put them in a bench press machine where there's no technical aspect, and fucking the raw strength comes out. You get to see who the stronger man is. And in this case, it would be fucking Brian Shaw, because strongmen have to do so many different technical aspects and technical lifts, they can never truly specialize in bench, squat, dead, etc. So what they do have is just this incredible raw strength versus powerlifters who are specialized, or Olympic lifters who are specialized. Anytime you use a barbell or dumbbell, there's less safety, and it's less safe. There's less mind-muscle connection, and the strength isn't as honest because there's a technical aspect. So I don't want to hear that either. Like, if I could get stronger at machines, I'd be way more impressed personally by my strength in machines than a technical lift. Anyway, see you guys for more Piss and Vinegar. Bye-bye. Bye.